Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on an exploration of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. He's a figure whose life story really weaves together threads of, well, intense spiritual devotion, profound global goals, and just relentless controversy. You've probably encountered his name, maybe seen some headlines, but our mission today is to give you a comprehensive, balanced, and engaging understanding of his really audacious vision and the core tenets of his movement and, the historical context of his struggle. We've pulled together quite a stack of sources, articles, historical accounts, theological analyses to trace his path from humble Korean origins all the way to becoming a global spiritual leader.
Exactly. And we'll unpack those foundational spiritual experiences, the heart of his teachings, but also the significant persecution and, frankly, the public rejection he faced. Understanding Moon's journey offers some fascinating insights, I think, into unwavering faith, the immense challenges that come with a radical vision, and also the complex dynamics that unfold when, new religious movements encounter established traditions.
Yeah, definitely. And prepare for a journey that, certainly for his followers, is seen as nothing short of a divine epic. It's full of startling revelations, miraculous survival in a communist death camp, those famously large-scale marriage blessings, and even his ultimate imprisonment right here in America.
It's quite the story.
It really is. Okay, let's dive into the incredible story of this truly unyielding visionary. So, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, originally named Young Moon, was born January 25, 1920. In a pretty remote village, what is now North Korea.
Right. And his family's background, it was initially steeped in Confucianism, but they embraced Presbyterianism during his formative years. And this instilled in him, apparently, a deep respect for Christian teachings and a very fervent personal faith.
And then comes this profoundly transformative moment, Easter Sunday, 1935. It really sets his life on an entirely different course. He's 15 years old, praying intensely in the Korean mountains, and he experiences this pivotal vision.
A vision of Jesus Christ, he believed, who, he said, appeared to him, entrusting him with this monumental task: to complete God's mission for humanity, a mission that Moon was told Jesus himself couldn't fully accomplish on Earth.
Wow. That's a heavy commission.
Immense, yeah. And it wasn't just a call to ministry as we might normally think of it. It was a mandate to uncover profound truths, to heal human suffering, and ultimately to establish God's kingdom on Earth. A world defined by lasting peace, true love, and unified families. That was the vision.
And he understood the weight of it.
Oh, yes. He understood the immense weight, and he said he was warned the path would be incredibly arduous, fraught with misunderstanding, severe persecution, and just unimaginable suffering.
So what did he do after receiving a message like that?
Well, for the next decade, Moon embarked on this solitary, grueling spiritual quest: intense prayer, fasting, biblical study, seeking direct communion with God, Jesus, and he said, countless saints and sages. And through this process, he meticulously pieced together the fundamental principles that would later form the core of his teachings, what became known as the divine principle.
Okay, the divine principle. Let's unpack that a bit. What makes it different?
Well, what truly sets it apart, and what was so startling for its time, was its redefinition of the human fall. Unlike common interpretations focusing mostly on individual disobedience, Moon's revelation described it differently. He saw it as a catastrophic failure in love, preventing Adam and Eve from reaching spiritual and physical maturity and establishing a perfect, God-centered family.
A failure in love, affecting the whole lineage.
Exactly. This failure, he taught, corrupted the human lineage right at its source. And that insight radically shifted the focus of salvation, from just individual repentance, which is common, to the collective restoration of the true family. That became the foundational unit for God's kingdom on earth in his theology.
So God isn't just a distant creator in this view.
Not at all. For Moon, God was the parent of humanity, but a parent with a broken heart yearning for his lost children. And this understanding, in his view, necessitated a true parent, a figure or figures, to complete the mission unfulfilled by Adam and Eve. Someone to establish a new, pure lineage from which humanity could be spiritually reborn.
That is a radical departure, especially for that time and place.
Absolutely. A complete departure from conventional Christian thought then. But for Moon, it was the logical, compassionate answer to all the suffering woven through human history.
And we have to remember the context, right? Post-colonial Korea, the Korean War,
Yeah.
chaos.
Precisely. All this was happening against that backdrop. He started sharing these insights during that tumultuous period. So naturally, his teachings, challenging established religious norms, talking about a new era, they quickly drew suspicion.
Seen as heresy.
Yes, widely seen as heresy by the traditional Christian denominations of the time.
And that suspicion, it didn't just stay theological, did it? It moved into the political realm pretty quickly.
It did. His spiritual quest soon drew him into far more dangerous territory, the brutal political realities of his homeland. In 1946, while he was actively sharing his message in North Korea, he was arrested by the communist regime.
Accused of being a spy.
A spy and a social agitator, that was the charge. He was interned in the notorious Hungnam labor camp.
Which was, I mean, descriptions make it sound horrific, a death camp?
It essentially was. Known for starvation, forced labor, brutal conditions. Many didn't survive, but Moon endured nearly 3 years of unimaginable suffering there. His followers see his survival as, well, miraculous divine protection.
How did he get out?
He was liberated only when UN forces during the Korean War bombed the camp in October 1950. That allowed him and other prisoners to escape the chaos.
But reaching South Korea wasn't the end of his troubles.
Not at all. His ordeal was far from over. He continued to preach his message in the South and again drew the ire of established religious and political authorities.
Why? Different regime, same problems.
In a way, yes. In the religiously conservative environment of post-war South Korea, his unique interpretations, his claim of direct revelation from God, they were met with hostility. Mainstream Christianity branded him a heretic. His followers were deemed a cult.
And more arrests.
Yes, further arrests in South Korea on what he and his followers always maintained were fabricated charges. It really cemented this pattern of persecution from both communist and supposedly democratic Christian-led governments that would shatter his entire life.
That constant challenge, it must have profoundly shaped his perspective, his mission.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because Moon himself reframed these trials. He didn't see them just as suffering. He saw them as integral parts of God's providence, necessary to purify him, to strengthen his resolve. They forged an absolutely unyielding spirit in him.
That resilience.
Exactly, that resilience, that capacity to endure such severe persecution became a hallmark of his entire life. And it raises an important question, doesn't it? What kind of unwavering belief is needed to not just survive that, but maybe even thrive through it? For many leaders of new movements, these kinds of experiences are often seen as confirmation, confirmation of their divine calling. It solidifies follower loyalty and conviction.
So despite all that, the persecution, the arrests, he kept going.
Absolutely unshaken in his conviction. On May 1st, 1954, in Seoul, South Korea, he officially founded the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity.
Which most people know as the Unification Church.
That's right. And the beginnings were incredibly humble. We're talking a handful of dedicated followers meeting in a small rented house.
From that, a global movement grew. How?
Well, the early years were marked by extreme poverty, constant ridicule, but also the ceaseless effort to spread the divine principle. Moon taught his disciples tirelessly, often for hours on end, imparting not just knowledge, but what he felt was a profound understanding of God's heart and humanity's purpose.
What were the key takeaways he emphasized?
Self-sacrifice, unconditional love, and the restoration of ideal families. These were the building blocks he taught for a peaceful society and ultimately a peaceful world.
And this is where the holy blessings come in, the mass weddings.
Yes. As the movement grew, he began performing these holy blessings, or marriage ceremonies. But they weren't just weddings in the conventional sense. They were seen as a sacred act, an act of restoring God's original ideal for marriage and family, overcoming that historical legacy of the fall that he taught had corrupted the human lineage.
Establishing true families.
Precisely. That was the goal, to establish true families as the foundation for God's kingdom on earth. And this practice, initially small, eventually evolved into those iconic, large-scale marriage blessings that really captured global media attention, for better or worse.
And then expansion beyond Korea.
Yeah, by the 1960s and 70s, Reverend Moon started sending his young, very zealous followers out as missionaries across the globe, often with little or no money, just relying on faith and the generosity of strangers. It was quite remarkable.
Kind of like early Christian apostles.
That's exactly the parallel often drawn, yes, that level of self-sacrifice. They were truly embodying a spirit of absolute dedication.
And then Moon himself came to the U.S.
He arrived in the United States in the early 1970s, launched extensive speaking tours, evangelistic campaigns. He spoke passionately about America's providential role, as he saw it, in leading the free world and fulfilling God's will.
The God Bless America rallies.
Yes, those drew hundreds of thousands.
No.
And his fervent anti-communism really resonated with many people at that time, including disillusioned youth looking for purpose, and also political conservatives, especially during the Cold War era.
So that true family ideal, realized through the blessings.
Yeah.
That was central.
Absolutely central to his theology. Not just a social ceremony, but a profound theological act, meant to symbolically overcome the historical legacy of the fall and establish these true families as the foundation for God's kingdom. And this message, absolute values, family-centered living, strong anti-communism, it offered a compelling narrative for many seeking purpose in a pretty turbulent era. It connected personal spiritual renewal with this grand global vision for peace and order.
But while he was gaining followers, especially among those groups, the pushback was also intensifying, right? Particularly here in the West.
Oh, intensely so. It was in the West, especially the United States, that Reverend Moon and his movement faced their most public and severe rejection.
From mainstream churches.
Yes, mainstream Christian denominations saw his teachings as a radical deviation from biblical orthodoxy. He was labeled a false prophet, the movement a dangerous cult. That language was common.
And the media played a big role, too.
Huge role. Media coverage was often sensationalist, painting a largely negative picture. And terms like Moony became widely used as a derogatory label. It was quite pervasive.
And stories of deprogramming.
Right, those dominated headlines. Coercive attempts to remove individuals, usually young adults, from the Unification Church was a very controversial and fraught period.
So his message of unity, family, peace, it got drowned out.
Often, yes. Drowned out by accusations of brainwashing, financial exploitation, political conspiracy. It was a tremendous struggle for them to convey his core message through that noise.
And then came the ultimate test, legally speaking, the tax evasion conviction in 1982.
That's right. He was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut.
Now, prosecutors argued it was straightforward tax fraud. But his followers, and others too, saw it differently.
They did. His followers, and actually many legal and religious freedom advocates, argued that the charges were politically and religiously motivated. Persecution, not pure justice, in their view.
It seems like a fundamental clash was happening.
I think that's a good way to put it. Moon's really profound vision of a comprehensive recreation of society based on his principles, it often clashed with the more individualistic, fragmented understanding of salvation that's prevalent in many Western traditions.
Difficult concepts for Western minds to grasp.
Very difficult, especially his claims of a unique revelation and his own role within that. And for his followers, the imprisonment itself took on huge significance. It was seen as a kind of modern-day crucifixion, a final test of his resolve, a symbolic sacrifice for his mission.
But support came from outside the movement, too, on the religious freedom angle.
Yes, and that's important. Even those who did not endorse his theology, and this included a wide array of religious leaders, civil rights activists, legal scholars, they recognized the potential danger, the dangerous precedent his conviction could set for religious freedom in America. They saw it as a potential infringement on the rights of unpopular religious minorities.
And Moon's own perspective on being imprisoned.
For him, it seemed to be another crucible, another opportunity to demonstrate unwavering faith in the face of what he saw as injustice, transforming suffering into a powerful testimony.
So imprisonment didn't stop him either.
Not at all. Undeterred by the widespread condemnation and the prison sentence, Reverend Moon pressed forward. Expanded his vision even. He moved beyond solely religious evangelism. He seemed to understand that true peace required more than just spiritual awakening.
It needed tangible efforts.
Exactly. Tangible efforts to address the world's most pressing issues. So he established numerous organizations dedicated to peace, interfaith dialogue, education, social development.
Like the Professor's World Peace Academy.
Yes, PWPA, and the International Conference on the Unity of the Sciences, ICUS, platforms for scholars to tackle global challenges.
And he founded the Washington Times newspaper.
He did in 1982, explicitly to provide an alternative conservative voice in the U.S. Capitol, plus the anti-communist group, Cause International, and various businesses, the seafood industry being the most famous. He saw these as essential economic foundations to support his peace work.
But through all these diverse activities, the core message remained.
Absolutely consistent. The family is the school of love and the fundamental building block of peace. And this belief really culminated in those large-scale marriage blessing ceremonies. Thousands, eventually tens of thousands, of couples from diverse backgrounds matched and married, symbolizing the unification of humanity under God.
Those mass weddings. They drew so much media attention, often ridicule.
They did. But for Moon, they were the living embodiment of his vision for a harmonious, interconnected global family.
When was he released from prison?
Released in 1985. And he continued his work with, if anything, renewed vigor. He, alongside his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, whom he married back in 1960 and referred to as the true mother, traveled tirelessly across the globe.
And together they became known as the true parents.
To their followers, yes, exemplifying the ideal family, providing a spiritual guide for humanity. And in his later years, his focus really intensified on interreligious harmony, convening countless conferences, initiatives to bridge divides between faiths.
Like the Universal Peace Federation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Established the UPF in 2005. It's an NGO affiliated with the United Nations, bringing together ambassadors for peace from literally every corner of the world.
What really stands out there is how pragmatic he seemed to be about peace. It wasn't just spiritual.
Right. He understood it required tangible efforts across every sector of society: education, media, business, politics, interfaith work. It demonstrates a remarkable expansion of his spiritual vision into practical, real-world application. His ultimate vision always aimed for this higher synthesis, encouraging people of all backgrounds to see their shared humanity, their shared divine parentage.
Unifying everything.
Spirit and body, science and religion, East and West, and ultimately, all humanity into one global family under God. That was the goal.
It raises a big question, though. How do you even begin to assess the impact of a leader whose influence stretches across so many different fields?
It really does challenge our traditional categories for understanding spiritual leadership, doesn't it? Theology, journalism, business, diplomacy, humanitarian work. It's vast.
Reverend Myung Moon passed away on September 3, 2012. He was 92. His life was just this: whirlwind of ceaseless activity, profound spiritual insights, and relentless dedication to that single, all-encompassing goal.
Bringing Gret's ideal of peace, true love, and true family to the entire world.
His legacy is, well, complex, still debated today, but fundamentally, it's one of an unyielding visionary.
He fundamentally challenged the status quo, didn't he? Offered new interpretations of ancient truths, proposed really radical solutions to humanity's oldest problems.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener?
Well, I think Reverend Myung Moon's story is an inspiring testament, regardless of what you think of his theology, to unwavering faith in the face of truly monumental opposition. He absolutely epitomized resilience, that capacity to endure unimaginable suffering, from communist death camps to the scorn of established religions and governments, all fueled by this absolute conviction in his divine mission.
And his enduring message.
Though often misunderstood, often vehemently rejected, especially by the Christian community he initially aimed to unite. It was never ultimately about division. It was always about ultimate unification of spirit and body, science and religion, East and West, and finally all of humanity into one global family under God.
His journey certainly wasn't smooth. It was a rugged climb, marked by that constant struggle to convey revelations that were both deeply spiritual and, frankly, profoundly countercultural. So, thinking about Reverend Moon's life, here's something to consider. What does his story reveal to you about the nature of conviction, the real price of having a vision, and that enduring human quest for a unified world even when it's met with such profound rejection?